Today on the History Channel, we will be talking about the Industrial Age. From 1800 to 1928, there was a rapid growth of industry along with improvements in medicine, sanitation, and food distribution. People emigrated their countries and immigrated into the United States.
They came to escape poor economic conditions, oppression, and discrimination. Most people went to countries with greatest industrialization. They wanted to go somewhere where they could find a job. Also, in those areas, there were higher wages and safe, affordable transportation, such as steamships and trains. Factory growth became the biggest cause of city growth. Most factories were built in cities that were already there. Most people moved from small villages to big cities.
In Manchester, England, the population was 10,000 people in 1717. In 1851, there were 303,000 people living there. Some of the biggest cities were New York, London, Paris, and Berlin. Each city had more than 1 million people living there. The citizens lived in residential areas on the edges of cities called suburbs. They were usually quieter and less crowded than major cities. Neighbors had a lot of fun with each other. The winter was a fun time for some people, especially those who hadn't seen snow before.
People were living closer together. They lived close to train tracks and bus lines. It gave the working class the option to catch a trolley or ride a horse-drawn bus to work. With most residents living in the suburbs, there had to be more improvements to make daily life easier.
Before the late 1800s, houses didn't have running water or sewage. Everything was dumped into the streets, making it a very unsanitary place to be. After the 1870s, reformers like Jane Addams fought for public sewers, paved roads, streetlights, and many more to make their neighborhoods a safer and more enjoyable place.
The first refrigerator was made in the late 1800s. It allowed food to stay cold and fresh. In the 1870s, the first refrigerated railroad car was used. Pasteurization started being used, which is a method of heating a liquid, then cooling it to preserve it. Increased studies of food compared to health started the use of ideas. Diseases that were caused from lack of vitamins were cleared from the industrial areas.
The French Revolution stated that there should be liberty, equality, and representative government. That led to the idea of education for all. People feared the taxes, but education was free. In the late 1800s, American and European governments made a law for children to attend school. Most students went to college after completing high school. Elementary schools were provided to girls, but most couldn't attend college. People believed that many courses were not necessary for most women.
A woman named Emily Davies argued that women should be treated the same as men, and they deserved a good education as well. In the 1800s, some colleges just for women started appearing in the United States and Great Britain. Since more people were educated, there were more published books, magazines, and newspapers. More people were able to read about politics, sports, sciences, and foreign affairs. Newspaper companies opened more jobs as well. After the working hours and on the weekends, families had a lot of time to do whatever they wanted. Dancing halls such as vaudeville allowed for comical skits, music, singing, and dancing. Museums and libraries let people visit for a day and learn something from their trip.
After the French Revolution, a museum opened that contained all of the artwork from the French kings, and they started to collect artwork from all over the world. In London, Paris, and the United States, public libraries opened. Andrew Carnegie donated money, and 2,509 Carnegie libraries were opened between 1883 and 1929. Another form of entertainment was sports. In the 1800s, soccer, rugby, and baseball became popular. In the mid-1800s, soccer and rugby players were full-time athletes.
An American named Walter Camp introduced rugby into the United States. In 1920, a professional rugby league was started. In the late 1800s, there were hundreds of bicycle manufacturers. Citizens started sharing the road with bikes. In the 1860s, the Cincinnati Red Stockings were the first professional baseball team. The first official World Series was played in 1903 when the Boston Americans beat the Pittsburgh Pirates 5-3.
Since cities were crowded, public parks opened for families to enjoy the outdoors. Eventually, playgrounds were placed for children.
The Industrial Age was a time of change for society and culture. There were advances in medicine, suburbs, education, and leisure time. The Industrial Age is one of many major events in history.